Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to my review and in-depth analysis of Clone Wars Volume 6 on the Fields of Battle, initially and originally published by Dark Horse Comics. As I've said many times before, this series is vastly superior to the Clone Wars TV show that we got from Dave Filoni. Not taking anything away from that show, which had its moments, but if I had to choose between what kind of experience do I really want from the Clone Wars era, I choose these comics any day. And one of the main reasons why is because they're so mature. There's no kiddie stuff in here. There's no Jar Jar Binks. There's no ridiculous droid humor. There's very little of that bickering back and forth between Padawans and their masters, like initially how it was between Ahsoka Tano and Anakin, with the whole Snips and Sky Guy ridiculous, cringeworthy nonsense. There's none of that here. This is just like literally you open up volume 1 and you hit the ground running, and it's a mature read, right? And not only that, but the stories are compelling, they're outstanding, and the artwork is gorgeous to look at. I really love this series. And this series was originally published as Star Wars Republic when it was being released issue by issue. But enough of the introduction. Let's get our hands dirty and talk about the contents of this lovely volume. So, our first story brings us to the planet called Null, right? And we see that the Separatists and the Republic are fighting, and notably, the Republic is there at Null to fight against the Separatists. The Jedi are being attacked by bounty hunters, and one of these bounty hunters is named Nazar. Now, the Crimson Nova sector of bounty hunters are basically offering a bounty on Jedi, right? So there's a bounty out on Jedi, and they're being offered a high reward, right? Now, Mace Windu wants to confront these bounty hunters, the Crimson Nova sector of bounty hunters, and he wants to confront them and convince them to rethink this position, right? Most importantly, to rethink this order of putting an offer out on a bounty on Jedi, right? In other words, he wants them to rescind the order, right? Now, Thom, Jedi Master Thom, feels the Jedi are doing the wrong thing by fighting. And you see this recurring theme in these Clone Wars properties over and over again. You see some of the Jedi question whether fighting in the war is losing the war in and of itself. Even Yoda said this at the end of Clone Wars, the TV show, right? Volume 6 or Season 6, originally called The Lost Missions. Is fighting the war losing the war, right? Does anyone really win a war, right? And ultimately, we know the fate of the Jedi and what happens. And yeah, by engaging in the war, it's leading you into a path of self-destruction, because the Jedi are ultimately serving the Republic and not serving the Force. They were duped into fighting this war, right, by Palpatine. But anyway, Thom, Jedi Master Thom, is just another one of those Jedi that feel that they are doing the wrong thing by fighting. Now, Thom feels, despite Quinlan Vos going undercover, which was the original intention. So Quinlan Vos is a Jedi that went undercover in an attempt to try to infiltrate the Separatists. But at this point in this series, many of the Jedi are starting to consider whether Quinlan Vos has officially joined Count Dooku because of the assassination of Senator Viento, right? So Senator Viento was assassinated in a previous volume, and some of the implications point to Quinlan Vos being responsible. Now, Quinlan Vos adamantly insists that he has not turned to the dark side, but if you've read these comics, you can see that he treads that fine line, and there are times when he does use the dark side to basically advance his mission. Now, Jedi Master Thom will confront Quinlan Vos. He vows that he's going to confront him. Now, the bounty hunters fight amongst themselves, and they're fighting amongst themselves, and there's one bounty hunter called Stroth who wants to stop hunting the Jedi. So he is basically a voice of dissension among the Crimson Nova sector of bounty hunters. Now, there's this other Jedi named Mika that wants to continue hunting the Jedi. She enjoys it. And the reason why she enjoys it is because she's upset at the Jedi. And the reason for this is because the Jedi killed her death stick dealing parents. So there's some moral ambiguity going on here, right? So obviously her parents were drug dealers, which was a bad thing, but they died. And just because her parents were drug dealers doesn't mean that she didn't care about them, right? Doesn't mean that they ceased to stop being her parents or she ceases to stop loving them, right? So this puts us in puts the Jedi in a tough predicament, as we will see later. Now, Mace Windu demands that Mika and her crew surrender. Now, Jedi Master Agent Kolar and Kit Fisto, they pose as bounty hunters and captives, right? So Kit Fisto is the captive and Jedi Master Agent Kolar is the bounty hunter. So basically there's this mission going on, right? And you have Mace Windu, who's just going in there head first, trying to negotiate with the Jedi bounty hunters, knowing that this thing isn't probably going to go good, right? And then you have another faction of Jedi, Kit Fisto and Jedi Agent Kolar, who are basically infiltrating the ship where this whole negotiating is going on, and they're posing as bounty hunter and captive, right? Now, Kit Fisto causes a cell block riot once he's integrated into the cell blocks with the other prisoners. And another Jedi Master named Sasi, causes an explosion in the hangar bay area. Now, the Jedi attack the bounty hunters, and Mika continues to refuse to surrender. She refuses to. Now, her comrade, Harl, engages Mace in a battle. And ultimately what happens is Mace Windu ends up killing Harl. And Mika, as a result of this, is furious. And she's willing to sacrifice the entire bounty hunter guild in order to kill the Jedi. So her anger at the Jedi has completely blinded her to reason, right? Now, the Twi'lek, Karis Fenn, placed bounties on Jedi. So that's who we find out is the one responsible for this order to put the bounties on Jedi. And basically, the reason why Karis Fenn did this is because he wants to reunite Ryloth, the planet Ryloth, which is basically the home world of the Twi'leks. And he wants to reunite Ryloth under Count Dooku's confederacy. So in other words, he wants Ryloth to join the Separatists. Now, Count Dooku is furious, and he accuses Karis Fenn of stealing funds to carry out a personal vendetta against the Jedi, right? So as a result of this, Dooku kind of turns his back on this Fenn character. Now, Quinlan Vos kills Fenn right then and there. And here we have more speculation as a result of this murder as to whether Quinlan Vos has turned to the dark side, right? Now, the Jedi are shocked. They're shocked that Quinlan Vos did this. Now, Mace Windu consults Tierra, who is his former master and who is a healer, about Vos. this is at the end of this one particular story arc. So everything is done. The bounty on the Jedi is no longer. Fen, the one responsible for putting the bounty out on the Jedi, has been killed. Quinlan Vos is the one that did the murder. The Jedi don't know how to feel about all this. And Tierra basically tells Mace Windu to have hope. That Quinlan Vos can return to the light. And that's how this first arc in this volume ends. Again, loved it. The artwork was outstanding. The action was beautiful, right? I really wish the cartoon was like this, man, because again, it's you get the excitement that you look for in Star Wars without the kiddie bullshit, right? So let's continue on to the next story arc in this volume, On the Fields of Battle. Now, the next story in this volume takes us to a planet called Zaja. And here we see that the Separatists are making droids, so it's kind of like another droid factory. And Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker are joined by Master Tono, who is quite young, and they look at her as she's kind of young to be a Jedi Master. Now, Anakin and Obi-Wan basically use explosives as a diversion so that Jedi Master Tono can infiltrate the factory. Now, Anakin doesn't want Tono to go alone, and Anakin fears another Lost like Jabin. And when I say lost, I don't necessarily mean like lose the battle, I mean lost of life. So, as we all know, Anakin is a very compassionate individual, right? He cares about people like his fellow Jedi. He cares about innocent bystanders. He cares about everyday citizens. He wants to save people. He doesn't like the thought of people dying. And we know that by now, right? I mean, just look at what happened with his mom. So the notion of Tono going in alone with the possibility of dying in order to achieve this mission really doesn't sit well with Anakin. And it reminds him of Jabim, where many young Jedi Padawans died. Now, Tono is discovered as she attempts to enter the droid factory. And Tono, again, adamantly requests no aid from Anakin or Obi-Wan. And she says that there would be too many possible casualties if they were to go in and assist them. Now, when I say they, I mean Anakin, Obi-Wan, and clones, right? So obviously there's clones, right, present. Now, Anakin, again, he will not allow Tono to die, to kill herself. Now, unfortunately, Tono dies. She blows herself up to destroy the droid factory. And Anakin has to learn to accept her death. And that's basically the general gist of this story arc. It's short, but I found it to be very powerful, right? And to hit those beats as far as what makes Anakin tick and what ultimately are the things that he can't deal with, right? And what ultimately influence him subtly being seduced to the dark side of the Force. Now, the next story arc in this wonderful volume is really interesting. It takes the point of view of one of the clones. Now, T-1138, which is obviously a nod to George Lucas's first film, THX 1138. T-1138 is a poison, and it's on a Separatist ship. Now, there's a battle taking place over the planet Honogor. So Honogor, this is the planet where the Nogri are from. Now, I was originally introduced to the Nogri through the original Heir to the Empire trilogy, also known as the Thrawn trilogy. And you had that one Nogri character, I think his name is Rook, who was basically the bodyguard of Grand Admiral Thrawn. So this is the same species. There's this battle taking place over the planet, and basically this ship with this poison has crashed on the planet, and the poison has leaked out. Now, the Nogri recovered the scientific instrument package. That's what it's called. But I guess if you want to use worldly terms, it's the black box, right? The black box that exists on a plane. And when a plane crashes and everybody wants to know what happened, they go and seek out the black box. So that's what the scientific instrument package is. Now, the Nogri have the black box, the instrument package, and they took it to an old Rakatan temple. Now, the Rakatan, they are like the original conquistadors, man, of the Star Wars galaxy. I mean, this goes way back, even before the dawn of the Jedi, I want to say. And basically, I mean, the history, I was originally exposed to the history of the Rakatan Empire through the amazing and classic Star Wars video game Knights of the Old Republic. So that's who the Rakatan are. They were basically this species that were conquest, all about conquest, and they had the Star Forge. I mean, if you don't know about them, I highly recommend you look them up because the history is fascinating and it's very important to the Star Wars universe, especially that foundation as to what created the universe, or the Star Wars galaxy, in other words. Now, a Jedi named Reich N tries to get the package, right? He tries to go get the scientific instrument package. And Aayla Secura also tries to get the package as well. Now, Quinlan Vos, who at this point in the series, he kind of just pops in and out of this series, throwing the Jedi off, throwing everybody off, right? You don't know if he's a Darksider. You don't know if he's still aligned with the light. You don't know if he's joined the Separatists or if he's going undercover and really working for the Jedi. But Quinlan Vos aids Secura, but Aayla Secura doesn't trust her master. So an important thing to note is that Quinlan Vos is Aayla Secura's master. Now, Vos says that the Separatists want the package, but will help Aayla Secura escape. So in other words, he's kind of like divulging this inside information to Aayla Secura, making her think that maybe he's helping her out. So he says, like, the Separatists want the package, they want the black box, I'm going to help you escape. But ultimately, again, she doesn't fully trust him. And ultimately, what ends up happening is that Vos lies and betrays Aayla Secura. Now, he says that he needs the package in order to convince Count Dooku that he is basically a real follower of his. Now, what he really wants is he wants to learn who is the other Sith that Count Dooku mentioned when Obi-Wan was captive in Attack of the Clones. Like, who is the other Sith? Because there's always two. Now, everybody knows Count Dooku is a Sith, but who's the other one? Who's his master or who's his apprentice? And ultimately, that's what Quinlan Vos is after. He's after that information. So he's going to betray Aayla Secura and take the black box for himself in order to gain this information. Again, it's all under the guise of doing it for the Republic and for the Jedi. But it's leaving everybody suspicious of Quinlan Vos. Now, Aayla refuses to aid Quinlan Vos and sees Vos going to the dark side. And it's kind of breaking, it's hurting her because this is her master, right? And she feels that Quinlan Vos is far too willing to compromise Jedi values in order to attain his goals, right? At this point, for Quinlan Vos, the ends justify the means. And Aayla Secura feels that's not the Jedi way. And basically, she tells him, you are going to have to kill me. Now, ultimately, what ends up happening is that the clone, who is basically, we are using this clone's point of view to tell this story, the clone is the one that ultimately ends up saving her with a blaster shot. Now, ultimately, Quinlan Vos gets away, and Ayla Secura truly believes that there is still good in him. And that's how this story arc ends. Again, I thought it was interesting seeing things from the clone's point of view, even though my narration didn't do it justice. But basically, the clone is just observing things and kind of like, Jedi fighting among one another. Maybe Quinlan Vos has a point because he doesn't understand this whole good light side versus dark side thing going on. So I thought that was interesting, and nevertheless, man, another great read for this volume. And then this brings us to the end of this volume, the last story arc, which is by far my favorite, and just one of my favorite stories out of this entire Clone Wars comic book series. And this is the Dreadnaughts of Rendili. And I love this story. And in this story, we see how Anakin gets the scar on his face. So that's why I think this story is very important, because I always run into Star Wars fans that are like, where did he get his scar? Well, look no further. We find out right here in this story, the Dreadnaughts of Rendili. And basically, Asajj Ventress is the one that gives him the scar. So our story begins with a standoff at Rendili. Now, the Rendili have joined the Separatists, and an important thing to note is that they have these dreadnoughts, and these dreadnoughts are very durable. They were basically created by the Mandalorian, so they are some heavy-duty equipment, right? Highly desirable, especially during this war. Now, Commander Dallin of Rendili and Captain Dodonna of the Republic both fought in the Stark Hyperspace War. Now, as a result of this, the Republic want to utilize this as a point for negotiations, right? They want to utilize this once and former, I guess you want to say, camaraderie between Captain Dodonna and the commander of the Rendili in order to find some commonality, in order to negotiate. And the negotiation, the goal of the Republic is for them basically to surrender their ships, right? The dreadnoughts, right? They don't want the Separatists to have these dreadnoughts. Now, they're going to try negotiation, and Jedi Master Plo Koon is going to accompany Captain Dodonna to Rendili during this negotiation process. Now, at this point, Anakin has finally been promoted to Master. And Kenobi, at this point in the story, is currently looking for the missing Titavian IV vessel at Mycroft. Now, they want to be neutral in the war. This is the occupants of the Titavian IV vessel. They want to be neutral in the war. And Kenobi is investigating this matter because of a distress code that was broadcasted. Now, he boards the Titavian IV, and when he's there, he finds Quinlan Vos being attacked by Separatist droids. And once again, the Jedi in this point of the story, Kenobi questions whether he can trust Quinlan Vos. Now, he decides to let his instincts, the living force, as Qui-Gon Jinn taught him, to basically guide him. And he decides to trust Quinlan Vos at this point. Now, back on the Rendili side of things, Rendili officer Yago basically performs a mutiny against Commander Dallin for negotiating. So basically, Yago is furious that Dallin would even consider negotiating with the Republic. He's mad that he would even entertain the notion of sitting down with them. Now, Jedi Master Plo Koon decides to surrender because he doesn't want any violence. Jedi don't want any violence and they value life over death. So Plo Koon decides the best course of action is to surrender. Now, Yago, he communicates to Plo Koon and Aldana that he wants to use them for leverage in negotiations, right? But Plo Koon insists that the Dreadnaughts will be destroyed, regardless if they're on the Dreadnaughts or not. So basically, he's saying, even if you capture us and try to use us as hostages for leverage, the Republic are going to destroy the Dreadnaughts, whether we're on them or not. It's going to happen. Our lives are, we are willing to sacrifice our lives, in other words, is what Plo Koon is trying to convey to Yago. Now, Yago, he doesn't really take Plo Koon's statements at face value, and he says that Dooku is coming within 24 hours with reinforcements, and that the Republic are going to be they're basically going to lose this battle. They're not going to be able to destroy the Dreadnaughts. Now, jumping back to the Quinlan Vos, Obi-Wan Kenobi side of things, Vos and Kenobi are able to escape the droids. However, Asajj Ventress and another separatist, I guess you want to say assassin named Score, is basically, they're watching. They're watching and they're monitoring the whole scene with Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, Asajj Ventress, in particular, is really after Obi-Wan Kenobi because she wants revenge. Revenge because she feels that Obi-Wan Kenobi humiliated her when he escaped her in the previous volumes of this series. Now, Quinlan Vos recollects when he and Kenobi were Padawans. And basically, he and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Quinlan Vos almost drowned together when Kenobi tried to save him from drowning. Now, what happened was Obi-Wan Kenobi basically just let himself go and used the voice of his master, Qui-Gon Jinn, to guide him to basically surrender fear, and they were both able to be saved and not drown. And anyway, I thought this was interesting because we get to see panels where we see a young Quinlan Vos and a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and things like that. And basically this story is being relayed to Obi-Wan Kenobi by Quinlan Vos as a means to convey trust to him. And Quinlan Vos basically says that the dark side has left him confused. And the only reason why he's bringing this all up is because Obi-Wan Kenobi is reiterating to him like, hey man, we don't know if we can trust you. The Jedi don't know if you've gone to the dark side. Can we trust you? Explain yourself. So that's what Quinlan Vos is basically doing. And he says that he is still on the side of the Jedi and the Republic, however, going undercover and pretending to be a separatist and pretending to work for Count Dooku. He says that the dark has left him confused and that he almost killed Aayla Secura for quote unquote the sake of the mission, and that he doesn't want to do that, but sometimes he gets confused. Now, Quinlan Vos ultimately ended up failing in that regard, and as a result of failing to basically bring back the black box, he is now being hunted by Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress because Count Dooku does not tolerate failure. Now, at this point, Asajj Ventress and Score attack Quinlan and Kenobi. Now, Quinlan Vos has to basically leave Obi-Wan Kenobi behind because there is a starfighter there and there's only room for one occupant. And he vows to Obi-Wan Kenobi that he will return to rescue him or, pick him up. Now, Asajj Ventress insists to Obi-Wan Kenobi that Quinlan Vos is a traitor, he is a true Darksider, and he does not intend to return to come back for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And one cool thing is that Asajj Ventress is able to mentally overpower this Rancor. And she basically attacks Obi-Wan Kenobi while riding this Rancor. And I thought it was a brilliant panel. I love the illustrations and stuff. And yeah, and it is truly conveyed right here how much Asajj Ventress hates Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, Quinlan Vos returns and is able to rescue Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they escape together on a whole entirely different ship. And Asajj Ventress basically is one step ahead of Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan Kenobi because she placed a tracker on their ship. Now, while all this is going on, this Score character and Asajj Ventress are basically bickering back and forth, with Score basically saying, you've lost sight of your mission objectives. You are too obsessed with killing Obi-Wan Kenobi. We need to just focus on the objective. But she ain't trying to hear it. She wants Obi-Wan Kenobi, and she's going to get Obi-Wan Kenobi no matter what. Now, back on the Rendili side of things, Anakin Skywalker, he's basically able to figure out how to disable the navigation system for the Dreadnaughts without killing the hostages. So at this point in the story, there's only two alternatives. Either the Rendili surrender the hostages and the ships simultaneously, the Dreadnought ships, or they basically just shoot the Dreadnoughts, destroy them, and destroy the hostages. However, Anakin is able to figure out how to disable the navigation system for the Dreadnoughts without killing Plo Koon. Now, the Separatist fleet at this point arrives, and initially, Kenobi disagrees with Anakin's plan, so Obi-Wan Kenobi and Quinlan Vos have basically rendezvoused at Rendili with the rest of the Jedi, and they're basically being brought up to date with what's going on, and Obi-Wan Kenobi basically states that Anakin's plan is too reckless. He feels that it'd be far too difficult to pilot and maneuver and go inside the Dreadnought and do what you gotta do. But we all know how Anakin is, man. Anakin goes anyway. And he's basically like, hey, man, I'm a Jedi Master now. I don't need your permission to do shit. And Anakin goes anyway. Now, in regards to Quinlan Vos, who is basically not being trusted whatsoever by the Jedi, he freely surrenders himself to the Jedi. And he understands that they question whether he's gone to the dark side or not. Now, however, during the battle, there's a power outage. And basically, Quinlan Vos's cell door opens and he escapes. But instead of running away from the Jedi, instead of running away from the Republic and basically having to answer for his past, he decides to help out Anakin. Now, I like this. I like seeing Anakin and Quinlan Vos working together in a mission because we see these two Jedi that walk that fine line between the light and the dark side of the Force, and I thought it was cool. Now, Anakin is successful in his mission, and he's able to disable the navigation system for the Dreadnaughts without killing the hostages. Now, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Quinlan Vos once again reunite and are working together, and they basically enter the Rendili Dreadnought where the hostages are, and they're able to rescue the hostages. Now, ultimately, what happens to this Yago officer that staged a mutiny aboard the Dreadnought, he is killed by Dalen, who was the original officer, the original commander who was open to negotiations with the Republic. Now, Dalen decides to surrender the Rendili fleet to the Republic. So it's a mission success. Now, things are far from over, right? We still haven't talked about how Anakin got that scar on his face. And we still have not talked about Asajj Ventress and her basically thirst for revenge against Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, Quinlan Vos, back on Coruscant, pleads his case to the Jedi Council. He's insisting that he hasn't gone to the dark side. And while he's doing that, we go back and forth between Quinlan Vos being at the Jedi Council and Asajj Ventress fighting Anakin. So initially, Asajj Ventress tracked the ship to Coruscant and she wanted to go and kill Obi-Wan Kenobi and Quinlan Vos. However, they're preoccupied in the meeting with the Jedi Council where Quinlan Vos is pleading his case. So she's able to engage Anakin Skywalker instead, and when she attacks Anakin, he was in the middle of admiring this gift that Padme left for him, and this gift was basically a holo transmission about how much she missed him, etc., etc. So Asajj Ventress decides to attack Anakin while he's admiring this gift, this holo transmission, and it was a big mistake because she starts to threaten the life of Padme, basically saying things like, "Oh, I thought a Jedi wasn't supposed to have attachments. Looks like I'm going to have to kill her since you love her so much." And man, this makes Anakin furious at Ventress for threatening Padme's life. And they engage in battle. And it's beautiful illustrations of this fight. And while this is going on, Quinlan Vos admits to some things, and he admits his mistakes. But one thing in particular that he really feels bad about was letting this Jedi that he had an affair with die at the hands of Count Dooku, and how much it bothered him that this Jedi died thinking that he was a full-fledged traitor, a full-fledged Sith or member of the Separatists, and how much this bothered him. Jumping back to Anakin fighting Asajj Ventress, he gets his face scarred in the battle, and he basically kills Asajj Ventress. And the way he does it was epic. So he basically, there's like this, like a power cord gets cut in the battle, and he basically uses the force for telekinesis, right, to control the power cable, and he ties Asajj Ventress up in this cable, and she's being electrocuted, and she's basically saying like, "What are you gonna do? Kill me? You can't do that. You're a Jedi." And he just says, "Goodbye, Ventress," and he lets her plummet to her death, right? And I thought that was epic, man. Epic fight. Finally get to see how Anakin got that scar in his face, and it was well worth it, man. Epic battle. Now, in regards to Quinlan Vos, the Jedi Council allow him back into the Jedi Order. Now, the last couple of pages, rather, show Anakin and Palpatine having a discussion, and you just see further manipulation of Palpatine over Anakin. You see how he basically rationalizes his anger and says like things like, "Oh, well, if I had my choice, I'd destroy all our enemies too," and things like that. And then he's also fueling his ego, talking about how he will be the most powerful Jedi ever, and how he should be the most powerful Jedi ever, and how he should be admired and all this stuff. But the last page goes back, and this was like kind of the only thing that kind of irritated me about this entire volume. So we just seen Quinlan Vos readmitted back into the Jedi Order, and then again the last page shows him sending some like transmission to this unknown individual who apparently is a separatist assassin or member of the Separatists or a Separatist agent. And basically Quinlan Vos says, "Yeah, I got them convinced. The mission is a success." And I was like, "Nah, man, like, dude, like, again? Like, this dude's mission ain't over again?" And at this point, I'm just kind of like, dude, this guy has, like, been a double agent, like, just a million times, I feel like. Like, can we just end his story already? Like, it's getting a little boring at this point. It's like, and I'll be honest, man, Quinlan Vos is all right. He's all right, but I don't really like the character because of shit like this. It's just like, dude, like, he's a triple agent, It gets irritating. And when I saw that last panel and it's just like, yeah, I got them all fooled. I was like, come on, man. Like, I'm done, dude. Like, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? You've done this too many times to me as a reader. Like, is he a dark sider or not? Is he a light sider or not? Flipping back and forth dozens of times makes the story less interesting. Like, I really don't give a crap, if he is or not. Like, leave it alone. Like, please. So that's literally the only negative that I have to say about this entire series, right? But again, awesome volume. Highly recommend it if you love the prequels. Even if you love the Clone Wars TV show, check it out, man. You can love both, right? Awesome story, beautiful illustrations, epic. Easily another A for this beautiful series known as Star Wars Republic, captured in these volumes as the Clone Wars. So I highly recommend it. Thank you guys for listening to this review and in-depth analysis. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. May the Force be with you. And last but not least, one love, people. Take care.